Well, good morning to all, and I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome to all members of council that are joining us both in person and virtually this morning, all members of our staff that will provide us facts and information so we can make decisions in the best interests of the corporation of ACW and all residents of ACW. Welcome to all the members of the public that are joining this morning and also the media. I would like to indicate that meetings of council are live streamed on the township's official website in accordance with the live streaming and virtual participation of meetings policy. By attending this meeting, attendees and participants are consenting to their image, voice, and comments being recorded and available for public viewing on the township's website. Do any members of council have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or potential conflict of interest to indicate at this time? Councillor Forrester, please.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. 9.4. You hired my son.
Thanks. I have that noted in the minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Forrester has indicated a conflict of interest in item 9.4. Are there any other conflicts of interest to note? Seeing none, I thank you. We do have two sets of minutes, so we'll start with the special council meeting minutes of the 15th of February. A mover and a seconder for these, please. Councillor Hickey and Miltonberg. Any questions on these minutes? If not, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. The second set would be the council meeting minutes of the 20th day of February. A mover and a seconder for these, please. Deputy Mayor Vanstone, Councillor Forrester, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby adopts the February 20th, 2024 council meeting minutes as written. Are there any questions on these minutes? If not, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Open forum is an opportunity for any members of the public to make any comments that they would care to regarding any agenda item from number 5 on today. Is there any members of the public that would like to make any comments at this time? And if not, I thank you for that. We do not have anything under delegations, treasury, or planning this morning, or building department. So we'll move to number 9, and that specifically 9.1, the Emergency Management Program and Plan. It is a pleasure for me to welcome Chad Krager with us this morning, the Emergency Management Coordinator for Huron County. And Chad is very capable of responding to any questions that any members of council may have. Do we have any questions on this emergency management report? And I'll go first to Councillor Snowblin, please. Question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did read the report. I just have one quick question, and I probably know the answer to it. Under background, the third paragraph down begins with the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Emergency Management Program Committee recently completed a review. I wasn't aware that there was a committee. I suspect that it's a committee of staff. Would I be correct in assuming that?
Thank you very much for the question. I'll defer to staff for a response, please. Chad?
Yes, the Emergency Management Program is made up of two sides, Emergency Management Program Committee, which is made up of staff, and then the Emergency Control Group, which is also made up of staff and external stakeholders.
Okay.
The program committee is what we review the program every year. It's just a small group. I can't think off the top of my head who's all in it, but it's 4 or 5 of the staff members. We just review the program, and that's where we make the recommendations of the changes that need to be updated.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify if it was a committee of council, but it looks like it was a committee of staff. So I appreciate that. Thank
Committee
you.
of staff, correct.
Thank you for that. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Miltonberg, please.
Yeah, thanks. This is something that's always in the background that we never really talk about. And I read it, but I don't really see any real changes. Would I be correct in that? I mean, we're not really fully cognizant of everything that goes on, but there really doesn't seem to be anything really groundbreakingly new here. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. Chad, please.
So yeah, ACW has one bylaw as it stands right now that covers all the encompassing pieces of the emergency management program. But when I do the submission piece every year for compliance, it was recommended that from the province that we all follow the same bylaw, so it covers everything that we need in there. So that's why I recommended that we change the bylaw so it just mirrors everybody else in the province. And at that time with the bylaw opening, open is when here in Perth Public Health, Dr. Klassen wanted her description just worded just a little bit different from when they separated from Huron County and being on their own. That was the only real change.
Perfect. Thank you. To follow up, Councillor Mildenberg, please.
Yeah, so this is basically just housekeeping more or less, and then going forward, we're just gonna keep with this same bylaw because everybody has the same bylaw. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's basically just housekeeping. That's a good way to word it.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Any further questions or comments? And if not, I'll entertain a show of hands from council and we'll adopt that in section 18 as a bylaw. And that is supported by council. Thank you. And thank you very much, Chad, for being with us this morning. 9.2 is the Treasury/Tax Clerk Maternity Leave Appointment Bylaw. And I would entertain a show of hands if we are in support of Courtney Gregory to be appointed in section 18 as a bylaw. And that is supported by council. Thank you. 9.3 is the discharging of the Community Development Committee. We have all read the recommendation from our staff and that this would be encompassed under the Economic Development Committee. Do we have any questions or comments on this direction? And seeing none, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to proceed with that. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Hickey, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby discharge the Community Development Committee, and further that the terms of reference for the Economic Development Committee be reviewed to consider elements specific to community development. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. I thank you. 9.4 is the summer student appointment for 2024. We have the recommendation provided by council. Do any members of council have any comments or questions on this? And seeing none, I will entertain a show of hands and we'll adopt that again in section 18 as a bylaw. And that is supported by council. Thank you. And thank you for that. Number 10 is a water department. 10.1 Veolia Water Operations and Maintenance Report is for information purposes. We've all read it. Are there any questions or comments on this? Okay, thank you very much. 10.2 is the 2023 Annual Drinking Water System and Compliance Summary Reports. We have all read each of these, and it is important that we have the compliance of this. Are there any questions on this before I would move to a resolution? And if not, do I have a mover and a seconder to receive this? Councillor Hickey and Councillor Forrester, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby accepts the 2023 annual water reports as submitted by Veolia Water for the Ben Miller, Century Heights, Dungannon, Huron Sands, Lakeshore, and Lucknow drinking water systems. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. There's nothing under drainage for public works. We've all read the report. For information purposes, do we have any questions of Tom on this report? Seeing none, thank you very much, Tom. Great work to yourself and your staff. 12.2 is the blue box transitioning and opting out of providing this service. We do have a recommendation from staff. Do we have any questions or comments on this? And first, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Vanstone, please.
Yeah, and I'm not against this opting out of this at all. I just have a question on right now when they pick up the garbage and the blue boxes at the same time. And I guess what I'm asking is, will we be charged more for just picking up the garbage when they're not doing both at the same time?
Thank you for the question. Staff, please. Tom?
So the way it's going to work is Circular Materials is going to take over the collection of blue box materials that will be tendered out through them. There may be an opportunity to have whoever is doing the recycling pickup continue a similar service. So I wouldn't want to say one way or the other until we see how things go.
Fair enough.
So you will keep us abreast of that, and so we have a handle on it when it comes around. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm talking to Waste Management this afternoon, so if we have any concrete updates, I'll bring them forward.
As it evolves, absolutely. Any further questions or comments? And so I will suggest that staff will advise Circular Materials that the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh will not enter into an agreement to provide Blue Box services during the transition period from April 1, 25 to January 1, 26. And furthermore, that Circular Materials take over the responsibility of providing Blue Box services. And I'm going to ask for a show of hands in support of this from council. And that is supported. And thank you very much. 13 is council committee reports. I'm going to go first to Councilor Miltenberg, please.
Thank you. I'm going to try to get through this without having a big coughing spell. Well, first of all, I did a St. Helens meeting. I'm just going to say the June fish fry is a go. The September, they might be shaking it up. And after that, we can look in the minutes, okay? So what I really wanted to talk about was the Rural Economic Development Summit that I attended on behalf of the Economic Committee last week. Originally, there was a broad invite went out, but then numbers got short, and I pursued it fairly aggressively, and then Florence helped me get in at the last minute. It was run by Lisa Thompson, our ag minister. It was the first time in over a decade that they had this. There was an opportunity at Roma to have like a drop-in, but this was a very targeted approach. It had 220 individuals on. It had probably 8 to 10 MPPs were there. So what they did was they would have speakers. They 3 times would go into a breakout room. And then you talk about what the speaker said and say what could help your municipality. And I was lucky enough, the first breakout session I was actually in with David Haggerty, who's the assistant deputy to Lisa Thompson. And the second time I was in with an MP, and Anthony Leardy, and the MPP from Essex, who got in a lengthy conversation with me, was just fascinated by everything I had to say. I really like the guy. But, and you can also have input on rural plan at ontario.ca if you're interested. But here was the take that I was going from. The first speaker, who was Mary Rowe from the Canadian Urban Institute, which was fascinating. She's excellent. But she said that the economy is an ecosystem of connections because 72% of Canada lives within 800 meters of a main street, and 40% of those are in small communities. So I turned it the other way and I said, great, my municipality is part of the other 28%, where we are not all within 800 meters of Main Street. So these great plans that they have, and they did, like digitalizing small businesses and that, we couldn't access them because they were for Main Street businesses and we don't have them. So the trickle-down effect is not working. And so for 28% of rural Ontario, you have to come up with something different, that you have to, how did I put it? Oh, look beyond Main Street, because that we don't have the economic development officers, which is flowing through a lot of these things. And we have mostly micro companies, and agriculture and on-farm diversified uses are taking off. So some funding that was perhaps across ministries, and funding that, my report just got a lot shorter here, that could be used in less rigid guidelines so that we could use it as well. One of the things that they said to emphasize rural Ontario small businesses was to build community attachment with historic buildings and unique public spaces. And I said that ACW has that in spades, but the funding doesn't come to us. So my message was, don't forget about the 28%. You're doing great for the 72%, but for rural of Ontario, who is not 800 meters within the Main Street, we're not getting it. The other thing I suggested in the third session, which did not have an MPP in there, was to work with our local schools who were constantly under the accommodation review, and work on curriculums and funding for busing and volunteers, so that, say, when there's the Godrich has the ag, they had the new ag, what was that, farm show in Godrich, no schools attended. Well, probably wasn't in their curriculum, and they didn't have a budget for busing. So where can they get that from? And when everybody is trying to protect their own, there needs to be somebody higher up that has a vested interest in everybody. And that was my message. It was excellent and went just over 3 hours, and I stayed for it all, and I thought it was excellent. And that's my report. And thanks for hanging on there.
Well, thank you very much for both your attendance at that and the reporting to us on it. Tremendously worthwhile. Any further committee reports from anyone? Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple weeks ago, I attended the open house planning session at McKay Center for Seniors. I know Councillor Forrester was there, and I think Bill was there also. I was there on the Tuesday night. It was well attended on the Tuesday night. I think it was well attended for, I think they had 3 open houses passing on information. They have 430 people that belong to the McKay Center. Of the 430, 86 are from ACW. Some are unidentified. There could be others, but 86, which is 20% worth. In their statement, it is nonprofit charitable organization that offers social, recreational, and volunteer opportunities for older adults, 55 plus. That's their statement, but they want to change that. And they're in a transition right now because they're opening up to cultural more also, of all ages, not just 65 plus or 55 plus or any age really. They're opening up to everybody. So shout out to the chair of the director, Nancy Allen, the Stephanie Hartwick, and then Maureen Cole. She's brought on the previous mayor of South Huron. She's a consultant brought on for this planning that they're doing right now, trying to broaden their organization and the stuff they can offer, because they've kind of ballooned to where they are right now. They're at a full capacity at the center, and they can't really grow anymore with the space they have. So that's the challenges that that they have right now. So it was an excellent event, and I passed on as a township, we can do what we can do to help out and approach us if they'd like to. And yeah, it was an excellent event.
Thank you very much for both your attendance and reporting back in on that. Tremendously worthwhile. Any further committee reports of anyone? I would like to make a couple comments. One, last week, I was invited to go to Ottawa to attend the Canadian Nuclear Association conference there, and it was tremendously worthwhile. Bruce Power had a great deal of involvement in it, and it was alluded to the isotope production that is and will be happening at Bruce Power, and it was pretty impactful to me when it was commented that 40% of people in any given room will experience cancer at some point in their life. And the value of isotopes for cancer treatment is very profound. And Bruce Power, we're the recipient of an announcement of $50 million from the federal government for continued expansion at Bruce Power. And with the proximity of ACW and Huron County, why there will be very beneficial spin-offs from that as far as jobs and related activities from that. Also, last week I was invited to attend the Kinsman auction and participate in that. And that is a tremendous event. All of the volunteers involved in Kinsman, Canettes, deserve a lot of credit. And to all the businesses that donate to that, free of charge products, a load of gravel worth $360, and I brought $370 or $380. And all that money goes back into our community. Jennifer, Councillor Miltenberg spoke about a circular economy. That was a great indication and example of that. So to all the service groups, they deserve a lot of credit for that. So with that, is there anything that anyone would like to bring up under new business for a future meeting? I don't see any. We have nothing for correspondence, for direction. We do for information. Half a dozen items noted, very noteworthy. Is there anything that anyone would like to expand on or make comments on, and I'm going to go first to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Thanks, Glenn. And I'm going to talk on 16.1, which is, I'm trying to pull it up here, navigating conflict relationships as an elected official 2.0. I went to 1.0. I can't praise it strongly enough. I got some great strategies. I was looking at this, came to an email to me, and I asked a new business to put it forward. And I was reading it, and I thought, well, this sounds interesting. And then at the very end, something caught my eye, which I thought was just fascinating. And it is the third thing from the bottom that you would learn, and that is understanding unconscious bias. So unconscious bias is something that's come on my radar. Well, my understanding of it has come on my radar. And it's basically a subconscious attitude you have about somebody that you probably picked up in your childhood and you're not even aware of it. And it might be about their race or their gender or their age. Those are the three top ones, but there's all sorts of them. In an example, I'll do an unconscious a bias that affects people in the workplace would be a gender bias. Whereas of 100 men and 100 women enter into the workforce and entry level, 100 of them, of those, 100 would make it to management, but only 87 women. And that is somewhat attributed to an unconscious bias you have when you're hiring or promoting people. That would be one that's fairly commonly accepted, but there's a lot of them out there. So when I read that, I thought, well, people have these without even knowing it. Do I have an unconscious bias as a counselor? And what would that be? And trust me, I've Googled this and looked up all sorts of unconscious biases. And in the role of municipal counselor, it doesn't really tell you. So I am really interested in going that, not only because the first one was just so spectacular, and I think everybody should take it, but I'd really like to pursue, I'd like to become a better counselor. And if I have an unconscious bias, I'd like to get rid of it. And I know from going the first time, the slides were not shared. So I would be happy to make copious reports on what unconscious biases we might have and share them with everybody, if not everybody wants to go to this, so that we all can become better counselors. So I would like to attend this.
Thank you very much for that. And your comments are very well founded, that this constant training is ongoing. And anything we can do to improve ourselves as human beings and counselors is certainly beneficial to our residents that we represent. Duly noted. Anything else that anyone would like to address under correspondence for information? I would like to draw everyone's attention to 16.2. That is a report that Huron County had requested a consultant to provide, and it is, I would suggest, very, very impactful as to what the future may look like in Huron County and in all of the municipalities within encompassing, and also in ACW, and the far-reaching effects that it will have to ACW. So I would really feel very strongly that's beneficial to for everyone to read that report. I found it very insightful. 16.5, is there anything on that, or we're good with that? Okay, perfect. On to unfinished business. Councillor Miltenberg is attending the AMO conference in Ottawa from the 18th to the 21st of August. We do not have a meeting on the 12th of March due to lack of content. And so now we will move to the bylaws. And the first would be under 18.1, and that is to appoint a treasury tax clerk. Would it be okay with council if we went around the room on this? So it would be moved by Deputy Mayor Vanstone, seconded by Councillor Snowblin, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 14-2024, being a bylaw to appoint a treasurer/tax clerk for the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, and then it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 5th day of March 2024. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. The Emergency Management Program and Plan. It is moved by Councillor Hickey, seconded by Councillor Forrester, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 15-2024, being a bylaw to adopt an emergency management program and emergency response plan for the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, and to meet other requirements under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, and that it now be read severally a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 5th day of March 2024. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. The appointment of summer students is moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Blake, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 16-2024, being a bylaw to appoint the positions of summer students for the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, and then it now be read severally a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 5th day of March 2024. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. We have nothing under closed. I'm sorry? We have nothing under closed session or reporting out. The confirmation bylaw is moved by Councillor Forrester, seconded by Councillor Miltenberg, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 17-2024, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh meeting held on March 5th, 2024, and then it now be read severally a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 5th day of March 2024. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. And finally, to adjourn, moved by Deputy Mayor Vanstone, seconded by Councillor Snoblin, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council does now adjourn to meet again on March 15th, 2024 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the mayor. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all members of council, our staff, and everyone involved in our meeting this morning.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
All right,
day.
enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Take care, all.